Hi guys, it's Ella. I just realized today that it is the last day of the month, and so I gotta do my wrap up and my April TBR. So that is exactly what I'm gonna do. It's my March wrap up and April TBR. I read quite a few books this month. I'm actually pretty surprised, and I read quite a bit of fantasy. I think that was helpful. I had a fantastic month, you could say. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to basically start with the book that I finished first in the month and then just work my way towards the end of the month. I find that it works that way, especially since I got the books lined up exactly how I read them. So the first book that I read this month was Vampire Academy by Rochelle Mead. Everybody knows what this book is about. Everybody knows, literally. This book was recently turned into a movie. I did go see the movie. I wasn't particularly impressed by the movie. Not necessarily the movie itself, but more the casting. But there you go. I can't remember. I think I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really did enjoy it. It is quite light and fluffy, but I did enjoy it. Then I followed that up with Frostbite, also by Rochelle Mead. It is the second book in the Vampire Academy series. And then I picked up Shadow Kiss, which is the third book in the Vampire Academy series. Although I do own all of the books in the series, I figured I would give myself a break, not to get overwhelmed and tired of the world. So that's when I stopped. Then I picked up Arclight, which has a super pretty cover by Jocelyn L. McQueen. Can you see that? And this book was weird, to say the least. It's basically kind of a dystopian about a society that lives essentially under a big dome of light, and one girl gets rescued out of what they call the dark, that's outside of the arc light. And it's her story, basically trying to figure out where she came from initially and where she fits in. And it was okay. I don't know if I will pick up the second book in the series, Meridian, which is coming out here pretty soon. But for what it's worth, this was the fourth book. Next, I picked up something that everybody has been talking about on BookTube lately. For once, I am on the bandwagon before the bandwagon drives away. And that would be Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. It is the first book in the Grisha trilogy. The last book is coming out also pretty soon, I believe in July, if I'm not mistaken. This was a great book. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. It is a fantasy about 2 kids, although when I hauled this, I said it's based on like Russian history. It's very loosely based on Russian history. Kind of more of a Russian culture type of a thing versus actual history. It was great. It was so good. It was really well written, and while I did get a little frustrated with the main character, Alina, sometimes, and the love interest, Mal, it was a really well-written book, and it was a really great story. Strongly recommend, 5 out of 5 stars. It was awesome. Then I read Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book. Neil Gaiman has in general been talked about a lot lately. And while I did enjoy this book, I don't think it is my preferred format. This read a lot like a collection of short stories. It is about a boy named Nobody, Owens, Bod for short, and he is raised by ghosts in a graveyard. And it's basically his story and how he grows up and such. While I did enjoy the story, I think it talked a lot about what it means to live and all of that. I do have a quote that I have in here. and I can't see where it is. But I did like it on Goodreads. Oh, it's You'll always be you, and that doesn't change. And you're always changing, and there's nothing you can do about it. I really love that quote from this book. I think I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. While I did enjoy it mildly, I wasn't thrown on the floor about it. It was alright. The next book that I read, I actually don't have. This was a library, Neil Gaiman's book. This was from my school library. The next book that I read was The Tales of Beetle the Bard, which is a J.K. Rowling book. It's kind of like a companion novel to the Harry Potter series, and I did enjoy that. It was short and quick. It wasn't necessarily anything to rave about, but it was definitely interesting. The next one, I picked up Siege and Storm, which is the second book in the Grisha trilogy. I'm not gonna give you a synopsis of this book because it is the second in the series and I don't want to spoil anybody. All you need to know is that while I was still a little bit frustrated with the main characters, the story was just as good. It was still fast-paced. There was still a lot of action. There were still a lot of questions that are unanswered that are left to be answered in the last book, and I really, really, really loved this book. And next I picked up something that also quite a few people have been talking about lately on BookTube, namely Reagan with Peruse Project. I know she has been raving about this book a lot. I've heard some people aren't necessarily fans, but I really, really liked it. And that's Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. This is the old cover. The new covers for this particular book are much prettier, but I wanted it in a hardcover, so I got this one. And this is about Selena, and she is an assassin. And just that premise alone, if that premise doesn't make you want to read this, I don't know what will. Because Selena is such a strong character, but at the same time, she's so beautifully flawed, and she's sometimes insecure, and she sometimes questions herself and doesn't know her own strength. And even though she kicks major ass, and I do not say that lightly, she still, is insecure sometimes and questions some things. Also, at the same time, I want to say that she appreciates the fact that she's pretty. And I feel like a lot of young adult books don't necessarily have main female protagonists that appreciate their own physical appearance or whatnot. And Selena really does. I do have to say that the writing took me a little bit to get used to, just because of the way the story is structured. It fluctuates between 3 different points of view. Mostly, predominantly, it's Selena's, and then there's Kale. How do you say the dude's name? Can somebody please let me know down in the comments, because I have no idea. And then the prince. Oh, don't tell me I forgot his name. Dorian. Dorian? Does that sound right? We'll go with it. Anyway, definitely enjoyed this book. It is the first in the series, and when I say series, I mean series. There's 6 books so far. 2 of them are out. There's also a collection of novellas, and I do own that. I haven't hauled it yet, but I own it. And I love this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Super duper great book. And then I read a lot this month. Then I picked up Crown of Midnight, also by Sarah J. Maas. It is the second book in the Throne of Glass trilogy. Also a great book. I think it was quite a bit slower paced. I do appreciate the fact that towards the end, Selena really flexed her assassin muscle. I mean, she just went into a group of dudes and just ripped them a new one. Completely just owned them. I can't even make words how awesome that was. But my qualm about this book is that it was inconsistent with the first book. What I mean by that is, in the first book, Selena refers to a glass of wine that she drank that was contaminated with poison that would basically disorient her. In this book, when she refers to that scene, she says that she drank a cup of water that was tainted with poison. I feel like the devil is in the details, and stuff like that drives me a little bit crazy. So while I still appreciated the story and I still love the characters, I wish it was a little bit more fast-paced, and I do wish that it was more consistent. Okay. Whew. The next one is Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging by Louise Renison. Yes. Yes. This was something that I just picked up because it was short. It's literally short. It took me just a couple of hours to read, and it is quite fluffy. There's 10 books in the series, and it's a story that follows Georgia Nichols, and she is in like high school, our equivalent of high school. It is, I do have to say, this is written in British English, and I'm talking like hardcore British English. It was awesome. It was so great. I love stories that are, to me, written in a little bit of a different way that I'm not necessarily super used to, but are still entertaining to read. This is written basically like diary entries, and the font is super huge, but it's written as diary entries. And while I did find it a little hard to get into the story sometimes just because of the way it's written, it was still a great book, and it was still really, really interesting. And it was, you know, light, fluffy, quick, something to fill the time. And then I read a lot this month. I think it's because I read so many great books that I just blew through them really quickly, even though they were quite big. Okay, after Georgia, I picked up Hold Me Closer, Necromancer by Lish McBride. I am about halfway through, a little bit less than half. And this cover, man, can you see that? Okay. This book, I'm about halfway through, and so far not a whole lot has happened. This is the first book, I believe, in a duology, because I don't think it's a trilogy. So far, well, for some reason, it's a quick read, but not a whole lot happens. I don't know how that works, but there you go. I'm halfway through. This is the first book that I'm planning on finishing this month, since now we're moving on to the to-be-read portion of the program. This is the first book that I am planning on reading this month, just because I'm already halfway through. And this is about a boy named Sam, and he basically finds out that he's a necromancer, and his life is threatened, and so far that's pretty much all that's happened. And I'm halfway through. This is dual perspectives, and so I don't know where the two perspectives will meet, because right now they seem like two completely different sides of the story connected by one little thing. So we'll see. We will find out. I will let you know. All right. Some of the other books that I am planning on reading this month is Tithe by Holly Black. This is the first book in the fairy tale retelling trilogy. It is quite little, quite short. This is a regular paperback. This is the Tithe paperback. It's little. So I am planning on reading this. Now, I think this is the first book in the series. I meant to check before I grabbed it off the shelf and then forgot, but there you go. And this is from the Modern Fairy Tale series, I believe, by Holly Black. There you go. Then I am planning on picking up a book that I haven't even hauled yet, and that's Let the Storm Break by Shannon Messenger. This is the second book in the Skyfall trilogy, and it is about wind fairies called sylphs, not fairies, something. And while it's not really super profound reading. It is an entertaining read. It is from dual perspectives. It's Arya and Vance? Let's check, because I really want to make sure. Audra is one of the characters. That's one of the main characters. Vane is the second one. And they have a love thing going, and there's drama. Since this is the second book in the series, I am planning on picking that up. This just came out this month. I was going to read it in March, but never got around to it. So that's another one that I am definitely planning on picking up. Then we have, and I'm sure I'm going to get to this, and this is the second book in the Georgia Nichols, The Confessions of Georgia Nichols, by Louise Renison, and that's On the Bright Side, I'm Now the Girlfriend of a Sex God. And yes, this is a different edition. I ordered these on eBay, hoping, or because I figured they would be the same editions, but they're not. Super major bummer, but I don't exactly have time to return it and deal with all that. But it is also another super short book, and it is written the exact same way the first one is. I figure I will be able to pick it up at some point really quickly. And the next one that I'm planning on picking up is Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. I'm pretty much the last person on the face of the planet that's going to pick up this book. My white balance is all off. But definitely gonna pick this up, see what it's about, see what all the hype is about. Not gonna, everybody knows what this book is about. I'm gonna read it. Then I'm planning on picking up Halo by Alexandra Adornado. This is the first book in the Halo trilogy, and it is about 3 angels that come to Earth on a mission to eliminate darkness, and one of the angels falls in love with a human. And so it's basically their story. She is the angel, he's the human. See, she's got the wings. And so it's their story. I haven't heard anybody talk about these books. I do own all 3 at this point, so looking forward to that. Let me know some of the books that you're planning on picking up, or if you're planning on reading some of the books that I am, or if you have already read some of these books and liked or did not like them. This video is getting super long. I need to read less. I hope you have a good night. I hope you liked my video, and I will see you soon. Bye.